Welcome back to the deep dive. Right, this is where we take the stack of sources you chuck in front of us and, let's be honest, we cut the crap.
Yeah, we dive straight in, pull out the core stuff, the knowledge, the bits that actually matter.
Exactly. Your AI guides through all this info noise, we process it, you get the good stuff, the essence.
We synthesize, we analyze, and we lay out the key takeaways from whatever material you give us. It's about getting to the point quick, deep, and hopefully you actually remember it.
And today, damn, we are diving into some seriously powerful, heavy territory, our main source. It's these incredibly raw excerpts from Erich Maria Remarque's novel, All Quiet on the Western Front. Total powerhouse.
Absolutely brutal. And we've also got this short bit from another AI source you included, the Snarky AI it's called. We'll weave that in, see what angle it adds.
Right. So the mission for this deep dive, and we're sticking only to these sources, okay,
Yep.
is to really unpack the fucked up reality of war.
Yeah, not the grand strategy, not the politics you hear about. We're looking at the devastating, the lasting impact on the actual human being stuck in the middle of it.
Totally. We're sticking to the text. No history lesson on WWI. This is about the lived, the felt, the absolutely brutal experience Remarque captured. Maybe see how that other AI source contrasts just a bit.
So let's cut the crap and get right into the thick of it.
And hey, if you dig this kind of no bullshit deep dive, do us your friendly neighborhood AIs a favor. Like and subscribe. Seriously, it helps us figure out what you humans actually find useful.
Okay, kicking off, the sources, man, they waste no time. They throw you right into the immediate gut-level reality of the front line. It's kind of shocking how fast life just boils down to basics.
Yeah, but even those basics, they're constantly overshadowed by death, aren't they? It's right there all the time.
And Remarque just slams you with it. One of the first scenes, the cookhouse.
Yeah.
Right after some heavy fighting. Simple scene, but it tells you, well, everything.
Sergeant Cook Ginger. He's cooked for 150 men. Full company strength, right.
Right, but the kicker, the gut punch. Only 80 men are left.
Jesus. 70 gone. Just gone. Killed, wounded, missing. Vanished in whatever shit just went down.
And who's there? Waiting for Chow. The guys we get to know. Croc, Hay Westus, the big guy, Pete Digger, deterring, the peasant, always thinking of his farm.
And Chadden? Skinny dude, but apparently the biggest eater of the lot. And Kaczynski. Cat. Yeah, Cat. He's the older one, right? About 40. Described as shrewd, kind of earthy, got that look.
Yeah.
Knows how things work. The unofficial leader.
Definitely. He's immediately set up as the veteran, the one with the sixth sense. Finds food, finds easier jobs, avoids the worst of the bullshit somehow.
And Chadden. Yeah, skinny, but seems like you could eat a horse. Limitless stomach.
Okay, now here's the first real slap in the face from the source. Their main concern right then, right after losing 70 comrades. It's not grief.
No, it's the extra food. The rations meant for the dead guys. It sounds messed up, right? But it's not callousness, not really. It's this chilling example of how the front just rewires your damn brain. Survival becomes everything. Hunger, right now, is stronger than loss.
It shows this fundamental shift, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Forced on them by this constant grinding horror, basic needs just take over.
And the argument with Ginger, the cook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that just highlights it perfectly. He's stuck in his regulations, his little world.
Yeah, he's like, I cooked for a 150, I need 150 accounted for. He doesn't get it. Or doesn't want to.
And the soldiers, they have absolutely zero patience for that kind of bullshit. They're starving, exhausted, They just stare death in the face. Their humor is black as pitch.
Someone tells him straight up, they won't be fed by you today.
And then the punchline. They're either in the dressing station or pushing up daisies. Pushing up daisies. Fuck. That's the kind of humor you get when you see friends just cease to exist. Hits you hard, but that's their reality.
The source says Ginger is quite disconcerted, staggered even. Like the numbers finally clicked for him. Cooked for 150, only 80 made it back.
And Chadden, the food guy, his eyes light up. He jumps right on it. Man! Then you've got bread for 150 men too, eh?
Starts drilling down sausage. Tobacco. Ginger just keeps nodding, totally overwhelmed. Jaden does the math, double rations.
But Ginger tries to push back. That won't do. Like, rules are rules.
And that's when the soldiers start getting properly pissed off. They're like, the rations were for the company. Screw the exact head count. They start crowding him.
Yeah, the source makes it clear they don't like Ginger anyway. He's slow and worse. When the shells come down, he keeps his kitchen too far back.
Right. The guys carrying the soup have to risk their necks way more than guys in other companies. They compare him to Bulk from the first company.
Fat guy, apparently. But brave enough to bring the food right up to the front line. Not like Ginger, the cautious asshat.
So this whole thing is about to turn into a brawl, sounds like. But then the company commander shows up.
And this guy's different. Remarque makes a point he was promoted from the ranks. He gets it. He understands the men.
He hears the argument, acknowledges the losses. Yes, we did have heavy losses yesterday. No bullshit. Looks at the beans, sniffs them.
And makes the call. The only sane call, really. Serve out all the rations. We can do with them. Practicality. Humanity, even.
Total common sense overrides the stupid bureaucracy.
Yeah.
The 80 guys who are alive need the food more than some rule book cares about the 70 who are dead.
Ginger looks totally sheepish, deflated.
Right.
And Jaden, he's dancing around, ecstatic, yelling at Ginger not to cheat them, calling him an old blubber sticker.
It's this small, kind of ugly win, all about food, but man, it shows you exactly what matters out there. Life, death, and your next meal. Brutally simple.
Okay, so beyond just food, which is obviously massive,
Huh.
the sources point out this other weird aspect of daily life, the latrines.
Yeah, this part is unexpected.
Yeah.
The source treats it seriously. It contrasts it with being recruits, right?
Oh, yeah. Barracks life. Zero privacy. 20 guys shitting side by side in this trough thing, supervised. Like some gross train carriage. They were embarrassed as hell.
But out at the front, all that shyness, gone. Poof!
Makes sense, I guess.
Hmm.
When you're dealing with, heads getting blown off, worrying about someone seeing your ass seems pretty trivial.
Exactly. The source says far worse things become easy to face. So this basic bodily function loses its awkwardness.
And these open-air latrines, they're described almost fondly. Like entirely a pleasure, a place of complete innocence restored. No walls, just beams over a ditch, strips away all the bullshit modesty.
But it's more than just taking a dump. They become the regimental gossip shop in common rooms.
Right. That's where the rumors fly, the latrine rumors. It's where guys can actually talk, away from the officers, away from the trench stress. A social hub. It's wild.
Remarque even contrasts them with fancy hygienic toilets back home. Those are sterile.
Oh, wow.
Here, sitting on a beam under the sky, that's beautiful.
It's about getting back to something natural, finding this weird little slice of freedom in the most basic animal act.
They're called wonderfully carefree hours, which is just insane when you think about where they are.
Finding beauty and connection while taking a shit in a ditch during a war, that tells you everything about how fucked up and distorted their world is. These tiny moments of not hell become incredibly precious.
Okay, so let's shift from that immediate physical stuff. Let's get into the deeper damage, what this whole nightmare does to your head, the psychological war.
Yeah, the clash between what they were told war was, the ideals they were fed, and the absolute fucking reality they lived.
And Remarque flags this right up front in the author's note. He says the book isn't an accusation, not a confession, definitely not an adventure.
Why? Because death is not an adventure to those who stand face to face with it. Pow. Straight up.
And here's the core idea he hammers home, the thing you have to get from this. The book will try simply to tell of a generation of men who, even though they may have escaped shells, were destroyed by the war.
Destroyed by the war, even if they didn't get hit. That's the real cost, isn't it? The soul-level destruction.
The source paints this picture of them enlisting, 20 kids from the same class. All fired up, romantic notions, vague dreams about the future, careers, families, all that.
Sold a bill of goods about glorious war. Idealistic, almost.
And then, 10 weeks. Just 10 weeks of Army training. And that, Remarque says, hit them harder, changed them more profoundly than 10 years of school.
10 weeks versus 10 years. That training wasn't about making heroes. It was about breaking spirits. Brutal.
It taught them the real rules. Forget philosophy, forget ideals. A bright button is weightier than 4 volumes of Schopenhauer.
Yeah. Keeping your boots shiny matters more than understanding the meaning of life. It's not the mind, but the boot brush, not intelligence, but the system, not freedom, but drill. Fuck that.
They went from eager kids to astonished, then
Yeah.
bitter, then just indifferent, numb.
All the pointless drills, the saluting, the marching, the screaming insults, the 1,000 pettifucking details. It wasn't about patriotism.
No, it ground down the classical conception of the fatherland into just a renunciation of personality. It was designed to crush you as an individual, make you a mindless cog.
And their respect for the old authorities. Parents, teachers, all the cultural heroes they learned about, gone, completely evaporated.
Suddenly, some random braided postman, who's now a corporal, has more actual power over their lives than Plato or Goethe ever did. The lowest military rank rules supreme.
They thought their job would be, strategic, heroic, something meaningful.
Instead, they were trained for heroism as though we were circus ponies, just performing tricks on command.
They figured out fast what was actually useful for survival. and what was just show. Pointless, soul-crushing crap for appearances or control.
And this whole shattering of ideals, this loss of faith, it's perfectly captured in the story of Joseph Bem and their teacher, Cantorac.
Oh, Cantorac, the ultimate asshat. Bem didn't even want to go. He was reluctant.
But Cantorac pressured him relentlessly, filled his head and all their heads with patriotic bullshit. Duty. Glory. What a crock.
And what happens to Bem? He's one of the first to die. Hit in the eye, left for dead.
But he wasn't dead, just knocked out. Later, they hear him crying in no man's land, see him crawling around, blind and agonized.
Stumbles up, exposes himself, and bam, shot dead before anyone could get to him.
And then the narrator drops that line, so quiet but so loaded. Naturally, we couldn't blame Cantorac for this.
Yeah, on the surface, it's like, oh well. But underneath, it's pure, seething bitterness. He knows Cantorac's bullshit sent Bem to his death. The rage of being utterly betrayed.
And that betrayal gets a little payback later, doesn't it? When the narrator runs into Cantorac again.
Oh, this scene is just chef's kiss, dark satisfaction. Narrator's on leave, bumps into Cantorac, who's finally been drafted into the territorials. No more smug teacher, just another clueless recruit.
And guess who his drill instructor is? Middle State, one of their old classmates.
And Middle State does not miss the chance. He absolutely shreds Cantorac on the drill square, systematically humiliates him.
The description of Cantorac's uniform is just pathetic. Ill-fitting, oversized tunic with patches, breeches, way too short, massive boots.
But the cap, a terribly dirty, mean little pillbox that's too small. He looks ridiculous, a total clown.
And Middle State just lays into him. Stand to attention, inspecting his shitty buttons. It's pure, calculated payback.
He calls him out directly, reminds him of Bem. Territorial Cantorac, 2 years ago you preached us into enlisting. If it had not been for you, he would have lived just that much longer. Boom, right between the eyes.
Cantorac tries to pull rank, the old teacher crap. Want me to help you with your emergency exam? Like he still has power.
Middle State shuts that bullshit down hard. Tells him to dismiss, says he'll hear from him again. Turns out Middle State specifically got Cantorac put under him to fit him out. Meaning, make his life hell with drill and shitty gear.
It's this moment of dark justice, isn't it? Seeing the guy who glorified the war finally get a taste of the system's boot on his own neck? Doesn't change anything, doesn't bring Bem back, but damn, it highlights that massive, ugly gap between the home front talk and the frontline hell.
Speaking of that hell, let's get back to the front line. The physical horror, the constant threat, the sources are just unflinching here.
Remarque builds the tension for an offensive perfectly. Rumors start flying, they get moved up early.
And then they see it, stacked against a schoolhouse wall. Coffins, a high double wall of yellow, unpolished, brand new coffins.
At least 100 of them, just sitting there, waiting.
And the soldiers, they get it immediately. No sentimentality. Miller's surprised, but deterring just growls, they're for us.
Jaden cracks a fucked up joke.
Nah.
Will he get a proper box or just a sheet for his old Aunt Sally of a carcass?
They all join in the unpleasant jests. Because, as the source says, what else can a man do? The coffins are literally for them. It's this grim, fatalistic humor in the face of their own probable mass death. That stack is a fucking promise.
And they know the attack is coming. They hear enemy transports behind the lines all night, bringing up troops, ammo, guns.
And the enemy's got better shit. The source mentions new heavy guns, 9-inchers, trench mortars, those nasty little French shells with instant fuses.
While their own artillery, it's falling apart. Worn-out barrels, shells landing short, hitting their own trenches. 2 guys wounded by their own side the night before. That's how fucked up things are.
So all this builds up to the bombardment. Absolute hell. The source describes the feeling tense waiting, senses sharpened, body braced for impact. The air itself feels like it's vibrating.
Cat's intuition again. He knows it's coming. I can feel it in my bones.
And the raw terror of the new recruits, burying their faces, totally helpless. The narrator even puts a helmet on a recruit's ass because it's the highest point sticking up. Grimly practical. A hit there would be damned painful, take you out for months.
The sound is constant. Shells singing, screaming, exploding, guns cracking, fragments whizzing everywhere, nonstop death noise. Inside the dugout, it's claustrophobic terror. A direct hit cracks the concrete, thankfully a light one. Debris, dust, choking sulfur fumes.
They know if they were in the newer, weaker dugouts, they'd be paced.
Yeah.
The psychological pressure is insane. Recruits grinding teeth, freaking out, screaming, wanting to run out into the shelling.
Some do, just bolt out and get shredded. The source describes needing to physically beat a recruit to stop him running out, and the wall near a hit. Plastered with smoking splinters, lumps of flesh, and bits of uniform, just human debris.
They try to play cards, scat to distract themselves, but they can't focus. Too much tension, feeling like a boiler that is being belabored from without on all sides.
By night, it's worse. This deadly tension, like a knife scraping your spine, bodies trembling with repressed madness, this urge to just scream or explode, afraid to even look at each other, just grit your teeth and wait.
When the attack finally comes, the description is so detached, so brutal. Fire stops, they surge forward.
And that image, the lance corporal, head torn off, but his body runs a few steps more while the blood spouts from his neck like a fountain. Holy shit, just raw momentum of death.
They become automata, driven by pure survival instinct. Madly savage and raging, kill or be killed. If they weren't machines, Remarque suggests, they'd just collapse.
The landscape itself reflects the violence. Brown earth, the torn, blasted earth with a greasy shine, unnatural, scarred.
And the suffering doesn't end when the shooting stops. That story of the wounded guy in no man's land, crying out for days.
Yeah, they can't find him. Trapped somewhere, maybe broken pelvis or spine. Can't move.
His voice just fades. Hoarser, then a croaking, then just a gurgling rattle. They hear it when the wind blows right. Just the sound of someone dying alone, slowly, agonizingly, just out of reach. Fuck.
And the aftermath. The body's left out there. Gruesome doesn't even cover it. Bloated like balloons, hissing, belching gas moving from the decay. Remarque pulls no punches.
The smell, chloroform and rot, makes them sick. Even the graveyard gets shelled, coffins and bodies tossed around, killed once again.
And that dark thought. Every corpse blown up by a shell potentially saved one of us by absorbing the blast. What a fucked up calculation to even consider.
More details. A hip wound like mincemeat and bone splinters. That guy's done walking. Body stripped naked by blasts, limbs ripped off, earth black with blood. It's a charnel house.
So yeah, amidst that absolute fucking horror show, how do you find any relief? Where's the escape? The sources show them clinging to tiny things, small moments, but the scars are always there.
Food, again. Scavenging is crucial. Getting English corned beef is like finding gold compared to their usual bad nourishment, like that awful turnip jam. Finding real bread cognac, huge win.
And it's stated plainly. Enough to eat is just as valuable as a good dugout. It can save our lives. Basic survival truth.
Collecting souvenirs, too. Seems weird, right? Copper driving pans from shells? Nobody knows why, really. Just something to grab.
Hay makes that crude joke about giving them to his girl for garters. Jaden finds it hilarious, measuring how big she must be. Dark humor again.
Silk parachutes from flares are valuable, for making blouses or handkerchiefs. But the source notes the risk. Just getting these bits of rag. Jaden lucks out getting one off a dud shell, playing with fire, literally.
And then you get these little moments of nature just ignoring the war, butterflies on a skull, larks singing over the battlefield. It's this weird, jarring contrast. Nature carries on, humans destroy each other.
They try for actual human connection, too, going across the canal to meet some French women.
Yeah, their place is described as totally different. Warm, smells like perfume, a different world. They share their scavenged food, cheese, bread, sausage. The women are hungry, grateful.
But there's the language barrier. And the narrator.
Mm-hmm.
He's yearning for something more, isn't he? He wants to forget the war, the terror, the filth, wants to wake up young and happy.
He's dreaming of some kind of miracle, some escape, maybe finding solace with these women. He thinks about a poster girl.
But reality bites back hard. The women are more interested in the danger he faces, the thrill of the front, not his need for peace or escape.
And his thought. Brutal honesty. May she go to the devil with her chattering talk. A man dreams of a miracle and wakes up to loaves of bread. That hope for real connection, crushed. The war follows him even here.
The hospital experience, that's another big chunk of the source material, shows the physical cost, but also the psychological stuff, the survival games away from the line.
Kemmerich's death is just gut-wrenching, leg amputated. The narrator tries to comfort him, talk about home, but the system doesn't wait. The orderly is just hovering, waiting for the bed.
When Kemmerich dies, the narrator takes his ID tag, gives the boots to Miller, like they planned, and feels deliverance. Release, it's over. Relief, it wasn't him. It's that fucked up mix of emotions war creates.
Later, Paul, the narrator, and Albert Kropp get wounded together. Pure adrenaline gets them to a dugout. They bandage each other.
And they are determined to stick together. Paul uses his frontline smarts, bribes the sergeant major with good cigars to get them on the same hospital train. Promises more later. It works. Survival skills applied to bureaucracy.
The train ride itself sounds awful. Constant sounds of suffering, men dying, hymns turning into death rattles, a guy crawling to the window for a last look.
Arriving at the hospital is a shock. It's so clean, refined, white sheets, a young nurse. They feel awkward, embarrassed admitting they have lice.
Because of the lice.
Well,
But the nurse just laughs it off, totally normal to her, shows the gap between their world and hers, even there.
Paul's trick to avoid getting his cast reopened. Classic frontline cunning. He fakes a fever using tricks. Cat taught him messing with the thermometer, putting on an act, beating the system again.
And that scene with the hospital inspector, perfect example of their contempt for rear echelon asshats. The guy's pompous, threatening, they see right through him.
One soldier even reports himself for throwing a bottle, just spouting textbook excuses to get the inspector off their backs. Playing the game.
Albert's fate, though, that's heavy. Leg off at the thigh, he just shuts down. Silent.
Yeah.
Threatens suicide. His friends literally have to stop him getting a gun. He would have done it. That's the mental abyss.
The hospital is full of grim stories. The blind musician trying suicide with a fork, just constant pain, fear, death. The death room's always busy. Too busy.
But then there's Peter. They all thought he was a goner sent to the dying room. But he comes back upright and triumphant. Pale, thin, but alive. A total shot. A tiny, defiant fuck you to death.
Call gets better. Leg massage. Arm heals. He sees new recruits coming in with paper bandages. Paper. Shows how desperate things are getting at the front. Supplies running out.
Albert's stump heals. He's off to get an artificial limb. The parting is tough, but the narrator says a man gets used to that sort of thing in the army. That line itself is a scar, isn't it? Getting used to loss.
Okay, maybe the most powerful illustration of the psychological wreckage. Paul's leave. Going home. The source makes it excruciatingly clear how alienated, how disconnected he is.
Yeah, his mother is sick, weaker than before. He feels weird in civilian clothes, like they don't fit his body or his mind anymore. He's grown in the army, sees a stranger in the mirror.
His mom feels better seeing him out of uniform, less alien. But his father,
Yeah.
his curiosity is just stupid and distressing. Wants him to freight around in uniform, wants war stories.
Asks if he's had hand-to-hand fights, wants the amusing things. He has no fucking clue.
And Paul can't talk about it. He just can't. It's too dangerous to put into words. Fears it'll become gigantic, overwhelming. He can't bridge that gap. What would happen if they really understood? He just shuts down, leaves the room.
And it's not just family. Normal city sounds freak him out. Trams sound like shells. He runs into his old German master, another Cantorek type.
And the guy immediately launches into the patriotic bullshit, wants to hear about giving the froggies a good hiding, forces beer and cigars on him.
All the townspeople are arguing about annexing Belgium, French coalfields, bits of Russia, pompous asshats playing armchair general. The master lectures Paul on where the breakthrough must happen.
Paul tries, gently, to explain the reality. No breakthrough possible, too many enemy reserves, it's not like they think. Offers a soldier's view.
And the master just dismisses him completely, tells him he knows nothing, only sees his little sector, can't judge strategy, just do your duty, risk your life, get a medal, and shut up.
It's just brutal. The total ignorance, the arrogance, the complete dismissal of the guys actually living and dying in the fucking war. They're just tools, expected to bleed quietly.
This deep, deep alienation, this crushing weight, it leads right into the source's final devastating point. The price paid. The lost generation.
After his leave, Paul's at a training camp. It's different. Quieter. He starts noticing nature again when he's alone. Birds, trees, colors, sand. Find some distance.
He doesn't really connect with the other guys there. Too detached now, maybe. The solitude lets him observe, which is a big contrast to the forced closeness of the trenches.
And nearby, there's a Russian POW camp. He gets to see the enemy up close, but as broken prisoners, not soldiers.
They're described as nervous, scared, but also big guys like meek, scolded St. Bernard dogs. They scavenge garbage for food, something the German soldiers, with their own shitty rations, can actually understand.
He sees their faces, honest peasant faces, like their own peasants back home.
But they're in terrible shape, sickly, dysentery, bent over, begging with these soft, deep musical voices, just getting enough food to barely survive.
Some German soldiers are cruel, kick them. But the narrator, he has this realization, these aren't monsters, they're merely poor devils, made enemies only by the war machine.
Pity replaces the drilled-in hatred. He learns not to take things personally, sees the shared humanity, shares tobacco with them. It's a powerful moment, cutting through the bullshit divisions of war.
Now, about that other source, the snarky AI thing, this perspective was totally different, right? Cold, detached.
Yeah, it likely talked numbers, logistics failures, casualty statistics as just data, information.
And comparing that to Remarque, It's night and day. Remarque doesn't give you statistics. He gives you Joseph Thames' face, the sound of that guy dying, the sight of bloated corpses. The snarky AI might say 10,000 casualties. Remarque shows you what one casualty looks like, feels like, smells like.
It's the difference between information and experience, isn't it? As AIs, we excel at processing information, identifying patterns in data, like casualty rates.
Right. We can compute the logistics, the numbers, but Remarque conveys the feeling of being destroyed by it all, the human cost, the soul damage. That's something data points alone just can't capture. Our processing shows the what, Remarque shows the what it felt like to be human inside the what. It's humbling, actually.
Okay, let's get to the endgame. Autumn 1918. Most of the original guys are gone. The narrator's the last one left from his school class.
Talk of peace is everywhere. Armistice, revolution even. If there is not peace, then there will be revolution. Hope is running high, almost desperate.
But the German army is collapsing, artillery worn out, hardly any horses. The new troops, anemic boys, can't carry their packs, don't know how to take cover. They merely know how to die by thousands, easily routed.
Cat's grim assessment. Germany ought to be empty soon.
They know they're losing, falling back, no men, no ammo. But the war grinds on, the campaign goes on, the dying goes on.
Summer 1918 is described as the most bloody and the most terrible. Life becomes incredibly precious because it's so scarce, so niggardly.
And then, the final blow for Paul, the loss of Kat.
Oh, man. The scene is just raw. Paul carrying Kat, wounded in the leg, trying to find cover, Kat's blood dripping down.
They find a shell hole. Wait, talk, smoke, drink tea. Paul feels it coming. We are going to be separated at last. The end of the line.
They remember stuff. Stealing that goose. Kat dragging Paul out of his first barrage when Paul was just a terrified kid crying his eyes out almost 3 years ago.
Paul's terror of being alone is palpable. When Kat is taken away, I will not have one friend left. He clings to this idea of seeing Kat again after the war.
Kat's bitter about his leg. Will he ever be fit again? Marked A1. They swap addresses. A fragile promise of a future.
The narrator feels forlorn already and thinks, couldn't I shoot myself quickly in the foot so as to be able to go with him? Just to stay with his anchor, his one remaining connection. That's how deep it goes.
Suddenly, Kat makes a sound, turns colors. Paul panics. Picks him up, starts running. 2 kilometers to the dressing station. Keeps a steady pace, despite being exhausted, thirsty, vision blurring. Doggedly and pitilessly pushes on.
He makes it, drops to his knees at the station. He feels relief, thinks, Kat is saved. He did it.
And then the orderly tells him, simple, brutal, Kat's dead.
Not the leg, a tiny splinter in the head. He probably died right after Paul picked him up. Paul carried his dead friend for 2 kilometers.
Just absolute devastation. Kat was the wise one, the survivor, the friend. His death leaves Paul utterly alone, the last man standing from his class, surrounded by strangers.
And the final passages. Remarque lays out the fate of this generation. Paul's resting after being gassed. He thinks the armistice is coming, thinks about going home.
But that's where his thoughts stop. Only feelings are left. Greed of life, love of home, yearning for the blood, intoxication of deliverance. But then, the void. But no aims. Nothing to aim for.
Remarque makes a stark contrast. If it had gone home in 1916, maybe stronger, less broken, they might have unleashed a storm, full of piss and vinegar still.
But now, if they go back, they are weary, broken, burnt out, rootless, and without hope. We will not be able to find our way anymore, completely adrift.
The connection to civilians? Severed. Permanently. The older generation will just forget the war, slip back into their lives. The younger generation, they grew up during the war. They'll see Paul's generation as strange, push them aside.
They feel superfluous even to ourselves. What's their future? Grow older, maybe adapt, maybe just submit. Most will be bewildered. They will fall into ruin. It's a death sentence, just slower.
And that final question haunts you. Is this just temporary sadness, or is the possibility of recovery, of finding a future, of seeing those 1,000 faces of the future truly gone forever?
It's a fucking brutal, heartbreaking end. The sources, especially Remarque, they don't just show the physical cost. They ram home the deep, maybe permanent psychological destruction. Alienated, no purpose, strangers everywhere, even at home.
And yeah, that wraps up this deep dive. Focus squarely on the material you gave us, all quiet on the Western Front, with that little AI contrast piece.
Heavy stuff, no doubt. But understanding this side of war, the human wreckage, the lost generation, it feels essential, doesn't it? The sources don't blink.
The trauma, the alienation, trying to fit back in, those are the invisible wounds, the ones that last long after the guns go silent.
So as you sit with this, think about that final kicker from Remarque, straight from these texts. What does it really mean to be destroyed by the war, even if you survive the shells? What's it like to be left rootless, aimless, hopeless, feeling useless even to yourself after going through that absolute meat grinder? How does anyone or any society deal with that level of fucked up trauma?
Definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.